Xi Jinping has taken up a new assignment, and there's only one way to describe it: Mission Impossible. The Chinese president is in Moscow. He's holding talks with Vladimir Putin. Beijing describes it as a voyage of friendship. But make no mistake, this visit is about the war in Ukraine. Xi Jinping wants to play mediator. The rest of the world is not so sure about that. The West, for instance, may not accept a deal brokered by China. But Putin takes Xi Jinping quite seriously. The Russian president called the Chinese leader his best friend. He's welcomed Chinese mediation. In fact, let me quote from what Putin said before Xi's arrival. "We welcome China's willingness to play a constructive role." And what about Xi Jinping? What does he think? The Chinese president appears to share the sentiment, and his support for Russia remains steady. Xi Jinping set the tone before his arrival in Beijing. The Russian media published an article. It was signed by the Chinese president. Let me give you the highlights. Xi Jinping wants to focus on three things: enhance coordination and planning, create favorable conditions for investment, and step up people-to-people ties. There's also a mention of the war in Ukraine. Let me quote from what was said there. "I have put forth several proposals, that is, observing the purposes and principles of the UN Charter, respect of the legitimate security concerns of all countries, supporting all efforts conducive to the peaceful settlement of the crisis, and ensuring the stability of global industrial and supply chains." Those were Xi Jinping's words. And how would he like to mediate in the war? There are some clues in the article. President Xi says the West should not be driving this negotiation. Instead, the process should be led by the United Nations Security Council. Remember, both China and Russia have the veto power at the United Nations Security Council. The question is, what does China stand to gain by this? Two things: boost its stature in global affairs and limit the role of the West. The idea is to challenge and, if possible, upend a world order dominated by the US. And this is Xi Jinping's biggest draw, and the reason why he wants to get his hands dirty in the Ukraine conflict. Russia has welcomed this, and Russia has its own reasons to welcome China's involvement. With China at its side, Russia is not isolated, and Putin also gets to keep his gains in Ukraine. If he pulls it off, it will be a setback for the West and, of course, for Ukraine. Earlier today, the Kremlin issued a statement. It said the two leaders will discuss Chinese proposals to, quote-unquote, halt the Ukraine conflict. So that's very much part of their plan. We'll have to see where this will go. The timing of this visit is also significant. Look at the events in the past few days. The International Criminal Court has issued an arrest warrant against Putin. It doesn't mean very much, but it's a political statement nonetheless. In defiance, Putin went to the Ukrainian city of Mariupol. This is a city in the Donetsk region. Russia has occupied it. Putin's visit was a show of strength. He went by a helicopter, then he drove around in a car. The Russian president was seen taking a tour of various districts. He even met with locals and visited a flat.
Это все покупали, все голые стены.
Ну что? И сколько здесь комнат у вас?
Три.
Всего хорошего. До свидания. Спасибо большое. Всего хорошего. До свидания. До свидания.
Russian forces took Mariupol almost a year ago. So why did Putin visit now? To show that he's in control. Like I said, the ICC has issued an arrest warrant against him. He's been charged with war crimes. The ICC is known as the court of the last resort for the world's worst crimes. When no one can persecute suspects, the ICC steps in, or so they say. But it can take no meaningful action against Putin. Neither Russia nor the United States is party to the ICC. A Russian leader has compared the warrant to toilet paper. China, too, has stepped in to give diplomatic cover to Putin.
The International Criminal Court should uphold an objective and impartial stance, respect the immunity of heads of state from jurisdiction under international law, exercise its functions and powers with circumspection in accordance with the law, interpret and apply international law in good faith, and avoid politicization and double standards.
Putin's Mariupol visit underscored how powerless the ICC is. And the West knows it. It is doubling down to arm Ukraine. Europe wants to spend over $1 billion to provide ammunition for Ukraine. They will buy over 1 million rounds of artillery to be sent to Kiev. And that may be the single biggest challenge to any peace plan. When you keep pumping weapons and money into a war, how do you expect to stop it?